Good evening. I hope you were able to rest a little so we can enjoy the space that we have now. Hopefully, very inspiring. I think that today we were able to comply with the objective of listen to one another. From all the interventions and the collaborative work, we were able to see the gaps, the pains of our education systems, as well as uh, the what we can do, how can we innovate. We saw actions that we've developed from the countries and the different KIX ecosystem stakeholders. In the sessions, many talked about the educational inclusion, guaranteeing the right of education focused in vulnerable populations of a region. We talk about boys, girls with disability who live in poverty in rural areas, children who are imprisoned in a situation that we face, which is migration, that repeated as an important problem that we all share in Latin America and the Caribbean. Next, we are going to start with a documentary video that shows the reality of boys and girls from Haiti who migrated to South America because of different motives and context, a situation shared with migration of different nationalities and territories of a region. We hope that when you see the video, the testimonials will inspire you to take action, ensure that everyone, independently on their context or diversity, have the same opportunities along the trajectory of their education. I'll leave you with this video to get started today.
Yo recuerdo una niña que había actividades en la escuela y yo estaba sentado y la niña me acercó. Me dijo que, negro, ¿qué estás haciendo aquí en esa escuela? Yo le dije que vengo a estudiar, normal. Y de repente me dijo, la escuela no existe para los negros, son para los blancos. Así mismo me dijo. Y no sé, después de ese momento, no sé qué sentí, como que me empecé a llorar. Como que el colegio, yo no regresé y empecé a venir a mi casa. Y después mi mamá también estaba llorando por lo mismo. Bueno, en ese momento.
En nuestra región, América Latina y el Caribe, más de 8 millones de niños, niñas y adolescentes han migrado, huyen junto a sus familias de la violencia doméstica, de desastres naturales y de la pobreza. La mayoría de ellos provienen de Venezuela, de Haití y de Centroamérica, tres fenómenos migratorios importantes de nuestra región, pero también a nivel mundial. 1 de cada 4 migrantes es un niño y la mayoría, más del 91%, menores a 11 años. Todas estas historias de vida, de recorrido, están marcadas por el dolor, por el destierro y la discriminación, pero también por la resiliencia y especialmente la esperanza de un mejor futuro.
La escuela recibe a niños con mucho dolor, con mucha pena.
Yo no puedo estar desconectado del dolor de mis estudiantes. Hay niños con mucha pena que basta con que uno diga 2 o 3 palabras para que ellos terminen llorando. Y que deja sus raíces, deja su olor natal, deja sus colores, deja sus formas.
No es como que podamos tomar todo lo que tenemos, los recuerdos, todo lo que pasó allá y meterle en una maleta y poder viajar.
O sea, hay niños que no tienen solo una migración en nuestra escuela, que han pasado por varias migraciones.
Recuerdan el sufrimiento del dolor y el miedo. El frío en las piernas, el cansancio por caminar de noche, armas, falta de sueño, humedad, gritos y en algunos casos muerte de gente que queda en el camino.
Uno de los desafíos más importantes que enfrentan los niños que emigran a otro país es continuar sus estudios y no ver interrumpido su proceso educativo. Para esto, los países tienen que eliminar las barreras que impiden el acceso de los estudiantes a la educación. Pero no basta con que los estudiantes estén dentro de la escuela. Tienen que sentirse acogidos, tienen que sentirse seguros y que son parte de la comunidad escolar que los acoge. De esta manera pueden desarrollar su potencial y seguir aprendiendo.
Las familias haitianas muchas veces no hablan o no dominan el idioma español y pasan a depender de uno de los integrantes que pasa a ser como el mediador, el traductor.
El sistema educativo no nos provee de traductores o de herramientas con las cuales poder interactuar con ellos. Nosotros interactuamos a través de nuestros propios teléfonos celulares usando traductores para lograr que nuestros estudiantes nos entiendan.
El estudiante, llega con una brecha académica y acá en el colegio se acrecenta más porque no habla español, entonces hay un tiempo de tránsito donde el estudiante no puede acompañar las clases, no puede en el fondo acompañar el ritmo de sus compañeros. Y después que aprende español, ya hay un vacío también en cuanto a aprendizaje.
Nosotros no contamos con muchas políticas públicas que nos ayuden a nivelar este rezago, a contar con mayores recursos de profesores, de otros profesionales también de la educación que nos puedan ayudar a poder nivelar esta brecha que hay entre nuestros estudiantes que han tenido una trayectoria en nuestra escuela con nuestros estudiantes migrantes que han perdido parte de este aprendizaje.
Cuando un extranjero no ha ingresado al sistema, no cuenta, no está, no existe, por lo tanto el recurso por ese no llega. Entonces, mientras no se regularice una cédula de identidad o un carnet en cada país, ¿no es cierto?, donde el niño sea visible para el sistema, el recurso nunca va a alcanzar.
Para abordar estos problemas, en 2016 SUMMA fue creado por y para los países, bajo liderazgo del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo. Desde entonces, como fundación, hoy día trabajamos con 21 países, investigando, desarrollando e innovando en políticas cada vez más efectivas, que realmente impacten el aprendizaje de nuestros estudiantes, pero principalmente también aborden las brechas de injusticia educativa en grupos como la niñez migrante, pero también en tantos otros grupos históricamente excluidos del sistema educativo.
En SUMMA queremos que la escuela sea un lugar de acogida, de resguardo de derechos y de inclusión. Creemos firmemente que todos y todas pueden aprender cuando reciben la educación adecuada. ¿Cómo lo hacemos? Trabajamos directamente con escuelas. Apoyamos a los docentes para que transformen sus prácticas pedagógicas. ¿Y de qué manera? Buscamos que ellos puedan promover prácticas basadas en el diálogo y la colaboración entre sus estudiantes, de manera que los estudiantes se motiven, que se comprometan con lo que está pasando en el aula y que cada uno traiga su historia, de manera que puedan fortalecer sus aprendizajes y enriquecer el aprendizaje de los demás.
Para enseñar en contextos de diversidad cultural, los docentes tienen que desarrollar ciertas capacidades, tienen que identificar la diversidad cultural que hay dentro de la sala, entender que en ella hay un recurso, hay un valor que les permite enriquecer su enseñanza y construir sus procesos pedagógicos a partir de esta diversidad.
Abordar el tema de la niñez migrante no es solamente un tema de humanidad, es un deber ético de garantizar el derecho humano a la educación. Necesitamos trabajar juntos entre ministerios de educación, academia, ONGs, organismos internacionales, para garantizar este importante derecho. Es por eso que se creó KIX, esta iniciativa tan importante del GPI y también apoyada por IDRC, y que busca en América Latina y el Caribe trabajar con los gobiernos y los distintos actores para definir agendas prioritarias, para investigar en torno a esas agendas prioritarias y finalmente, y lo más importante, desarrollar políticas que sean altamente efectivas, basadas en principios de justicia social, pero importantemente basadas en evidencia. tenemos el deber ético de gastar correctamente los escasos recursos que tenemos en nuestras sociedades, en nuestra economía. Economías a veces golpeadas, ¿no es cierto?, por distintas pandemias o crisis financieras. Pero no podemos dejar atrás la educación, sino que debemos apostar todos juntos, como lo estamos haciendo aquí también desde KIX.
Creo que la migración ha sido un fenómeno en Latinoamérica y creo que las políticas tienen que ir enfocadas en eso, a apoyar a estas infancias que finalmente se transforman en el futuro de un país.
Hoy siento que pertenezco a este país y gracias a eso soy presidenta del Centro de Estudiantes. Y uno de mis más grandes anhelos y deseos, y como mi futura profesión, es que quiero ser abogada. Quiero ayudar a los más necesitados. Es como que ser referente para los nuevos migrantes, para que la nueva generación sepa de que los migrantes sí pueden triunfar en otro país y que ellos también sepan eso.
Gracias por el apoyo y la educación que recibo acá. Ahora yo sé que tengo una nueva oportunidad y un futuro mejor.
Bueno, inspirador video.
Very inspiring video. The evidence is not only data and testimonials like this of girls, schools, teachers. Migration is one of those many problems we see on the challenges that invite us to find radical solutions and innovation, transforming. With that, I want to connect it with what Rukmini is going to share, talking about innovative solutions that will transform our educational systems. Rukmini is General Director of the Pratham Education Foundation and Yidan Award 2021 for Educational Development. I want to thank the space, especially to the Yidan Foundation and Bruce Au for helping with this event with Rukmini's participation. Pratham is one of the non-NGOs that is one of the largest of India, and their objective is to improve children education in all country. Pratham started with the objective to universalize primary education in Bombay, and the organization has been expanded their reach on all the India, implementing programs to be effective and replicable to close the gaps on educational systems. Rukmini is going to share transforming schools to promote literacy, equality, teaching at the right level. Share experience that have been transforming, has impacted millions of children in India, and we hope it inspire the countries in Latin America. Rukmini, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's very hard to speak at dinner time, but it's nice to see that everybody is awake and listening. So, good evening, buenos noches to everybody. It is 8 o'clock or something here. It is 8 a.m. in India, so it's time to go to school. And I thought we would invite some children to come to school with you this morning. So we start with a short video also.
गणित ही पढ़ाएंगे हम या फिर रंगों की ही पहचान कराएंगे, तो उनका सामाजिक विकास, बौद्धिक विकास, मानसिक विकास, उनके भावनात्मक विकास, उनके संपूर्ण विकास के ऊपर हम लोग को ध्यान देना है।
एक इकोसिस्टम तैयार करने की कोशिश की जा रही है जिसमें समाज, माता पिता और स्कूल मिलकर कार्य करें और बच्चों को अर्ली चाइल्डहुड में तैयार करें ताकि बच्चों की नींव अच्छी तरह से तैयार हो जाए। जब हम देखते हैं जो बच्चा हमारे पास प्री प्राइमरी में है, जब वो क्लास फर्स्ट में जाता है और वो बड़े ही कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ किसी क्वेश्चन का आंसर दे रहा है, वहाँ पे उसकी आंखों में चमक होती है और खुशी खुशी के साथ वो क्लास में पार्टिसिपेट कर रहा है, तो ये देख के हमारे मन में जो खुशी होती है वो किसी और काम से नहीं हो सकती।
I think we are all united in our desire to have strong foundational learning for all our children. And I was thinking about this film in the morning today when we were speaking about how important this is for the building blocks. So I will talk about a approach that we developed in India for our problems. We were not thinking about you. Okay, we were thinking about our children. And over the years, we are very surprised to see that similar problems maybe are there in other parts of the world. And so this approach, which we call teaching at the right level, was developed in India, has traveled to many places, has been assessed. I will not talk about that because that many of you are academics, so you will read the papers. But work has been done along the same lines in many countries in Africa, some pilots also in Central and Latin America. but I am only associated with the work in India, so I will speak mainly about India. And I will also speak about a particular age group, because I feel that these are many children, many age groups, and all of them have needs. So I will start with a new education policy that we have in India. Interestingly, our policy, the new one, came into operation in the middle of the pandemic. We had, as you may know, among the longest closures of school in the world. Our schools were closed continuously for 2 years. And the new education policy was launched in July 2020. And now when we look back, we think maybe that was a good time to launch it, because everybody was at home and had time to think. When you're part of a big system that is moving continuously, it is sometimes difficult to stop and think. And so we were very grateful that the work for the policy had been going on for a while. But its launch, I think, gave time for the whole country to think and to absorb. I want to point out few key features. Like many other countries, our school system for many years started at grade 1. But we could see that even in grade 1, some children come in ahead and some children come in behind. So the new education policy brought the first 3 years, age 3, 4, and 5, into being part of the education system. But they don't need to be in primary school. They could be in different kind of preschools. In the morning, we were talking about how in different countries, the preschools have had different kinds of growth and regulation. But to us in India, this was a very important move, because it brought not just the pre-primary years into the education system, it also brought this idea of stage. So the entire age from 3 to 8 is seen as the foundational stage. And you have not just grades, but you have the stage in which to develop the basic foundational building blocks. Then we have what would be called primary school, preparatory grades, grades 3, 4, and 5, and then, of course, middle and secondary. But one of the reasons behind putting stage is children are different. They learn differently in different ages. Their cognitive level, their social, emotional, and many other things are different at different points. And hence, whatever we do academically, and again, this is a point that has been mentioned many times today, needs to take into account the whole child, not just the brain of the child, but the heart of the child, the hands of the child, and that of the whole family. So our policy says two things very clearly. It says many things. I mean, there's a whole policy beyond this. But I think that one of the clearest statements, at least for us in India, is to say that by the end of the green, by the end of grade 2, we would want our children to have developed the literacy and the numeracy skills which are foundational. The policy goes on to say, and I don't have it here, that if we don't achieve this, the rest of all education reform will not have much meaning. So it's the clearest goal formation with a timeline and an urgency that we have seen ever since India became independent. So for us, it's a very big moment and an occasion and a challenge, and a good challenge, to say that we must chase this. But already we have children in our system who are beyond grade 3, who have been in school but may not have acquired learning. So much of what I'm going to say today is actually based on what is happening and what can be done with children grade 3 and above, because we have many, many children in our system who are already beyond the early grades. Children are in school, they've been in school. Many countries, even countries like ours, we have almost 98% children enrolled in school. And the best definition of enrollment, I often repeat this story because it's such a good one, was given to me by some children in grade 3. So the word for enrollment in many Indian languages is quite formal and big. But we always write it on the blackboard in every classroom. What is the enrollment of the class? So I was in a grade 4, and I asked the children, what is this word? because I wanted to see if they could read. So one child said, the word is a big one. It's called Namankan. What is it? What does it mean? So they said it means the name of the child is in school. And the word below it is attendance. So I asked, what is this word? They said, that means I am in school. So I think we have very large numbers of names which are in school. We have often quite a lot of children who are in school, but am I in school doing everything that I'm expected to do? I think that number is perhaps varies a lot and quite low. And so we see this, at least in India, that we have the children and their names in school. We now need to ensure that every year that you spend in school, the value that is added to you, the years of schooling, should be equal to the years of learning. Today, we are not in that position, and perhaps in some of your countries, you're in the same way. And if you don't build these steps one by one and solidly, you get more and more left behind as you go through school. And that has, of course, an implication for your academic growth, but I think it has an even bigger implication for you as your identity and as your faith in yourself about what you can do as you grow up. So much of what I'll say today is we have almost reached schooling for all, but now we need to translate that into learning for all before people lose faith in schooling. So if I have everyone in school, but I go home and my parents see that between yesterday, today, last year, and next year, I am not very different, I worry a lot that people will put a question mark on why should children spend, why should families spend, why should countries spend on education in the way that we would like to. Okay, so why do they fall behind? I don't think we all are very familiar with these reasons. There are reasons in school, there are reasons at home, and I think that each of these have a different color, maybe in our different countries, color, flavor, texture, but there are reasons. The point is, despite these reasons, what can we do, and what can we do quickly to make these reasons not matter so much? Once you're in school and once people are taking care of you, how can we get beyond these kinds of challenges? So before I go to talking about the solution, I wanted to spend a little bit of time to say, so how do we know where our children are today? They are at a certain age, they are in a certain grade, we have certain expectations. We have done studies, and other people have done studies, which ask teachers. Here is my student Bruce, he is in 3rd grade. Do you think he can read this? And many teachers will say, of course, he's in 3rd grade, so he should be able to do it. Okay, teacher has many children. You ask parents. Here is your son, Javier. Javier is in 4th grade. Do you think he can read this? And very often parents will overestimate what their child can do because of their grade and age expectations. So I think it's important. When you're out of school, it's very visible. When you're in school, many times it is not so visible where you are. And therefore, how do you, as a simple people, ordinary people, figure out where is my child, where is my class, where is my country? So we use a very simple tool. This is in one of our Indian languages. This is in Hindi, but you can see the structure. We will use simple letters, just common letters, everyday words, a simple paragraph, which is like our textbooks, 1st grade, few sentences which are connected. And then we call this a story. It is a story, but it is like the text in our 2nd grade textbooks. So we do this, we listen to each child one by one, because it's not what the child doesn't know, but it's also what the child does know, and where the child is struggling. And then we say that this child can comfortably be at para level, story level, so that I have a good idea of the composition of the children we are talking about. So if I use a tool like this, where is India today? This is data from 2024. There is a big survey that we do called the Annual Status of Education Report. The short name is Asar. And Asar actually in many Indian languages means impact. We've been doing this for the whole country, not we alone. Many people have been doing this. But it gives us very simple estimates like what we saw. And I don't know if you're sitting at the back and you can see the numbers below. But I think if I had to describe my country and the current condition of foundational learning, I would use this table. We have arranged exactly like the tool that you saw in 5 levels, and they're progressive. You cannot read letters. You recognize letters, but you cannot read words. You can read words, but you struggle with sentences. You can read short text, but not long. And then finally, you can read the highest level, and maybe you can read beyond that as well. What does my grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5 in India look like? So first, look at the grade 3, this one. This is the highest level that you expect in grade 3, because they are at least grade 2. And there we see that roughly 30% of kids are at grade level in grade 3. 30% at grade level means 70% already by grade 3 are not there. This means that in our society, in our economy, we have already left behind 70% of our children. Because if they don't pick this up by this age, the curriculum, the grade level expectations will go up and up and up, and you will remain more and more far behind. So in terms of whether you call it equity, social justice, self-confidence, I think the fact that we are only able in our system doing business as usual to be able to take children to this point is something to think about. Of course, 2024 has children in there who have been part of COVID, so they did not have the kind of experience that they needed to have. But even then, I think that's an important number. If I look at grade 5, and again, I don't know if you can see the grade 5 number, I think that captures the real difficulty of teaching in our kind of contexts. In grade 5, I have about roughly half the children who are able to read basic texts, and maybe they can do more. So let us say I don't worry about that half as much. But the other half is not all the same. The other half has almost 4% plus 11, something like 16% children in 5th grade who are not yet able to read words. That means they are 5 grade years or 4 grade years behind. I have another 14% who can read words but not higher. That means they are not even at 1st grade level. And then I have another 20% in 5th grade who are at 1st grade level. And I am a 5th grade teacher, and my job is to teach 5th grade curriculum. So what do I do? In my teacher training college, I was told you make a lesson plan and you teach in this way. I have 5th grade parents who want to see the report card of their child in 5th grade. But my reality is that who do I teach in all of this? And I end up therefore teaching the kids who are in my 50%, who are at the top of my grade. This number varies a lot from state to state and context to context, but I think we see that this is the variation. And in some ways, this is the inequality that affects not just the kids who are in the most unequal part, but because we are all in this world together, it affects even those who are at grade level. Because where does the teacher's attention go? Where does the system's attention go? And if we don't change this, and how will we change this to get to what our national goal is? So the national goal for the younger children we can come to, but these kids are already beyond the grade 3, and we want to make sure that they achieve at least their foundational literacy and numeracy before they finish primary grades, which is by grade 5. This is for the whole country. But we do teaching not for the whole country, we do teaching in a class. So what does my class look like? Same picture, but I'm now talking about one classroom. And here in my school, I have, let us say, 50 children for grade 3, grade 4, and grade 5. I have to say, I've never done a talk with numbers when people are eating, but you are a very good audience. I can see that you're eating very slowly. Okay. I told Javier that I have to sing for my supper, and he said, yes, yes, that's fine, you know. But without these numbers, it's a little bit difficult to explain the real, I think, the flavor of what happens in a classroom. So here is my class, same picture. Every grade, I have children at every level. And every teacher has a different, if you think of school systems, we are organized by rows. Each age and each age in a particular grade. So 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old. And each teacher is trying to teach from the grade level textbooks this very different types of kids in her classroom. And struggling because who does she teach in her grade? Looking at this situation and knowing that you cannot bring in lots of extra resources from outside, but you, whether you're a school or a school system, have certain things with you. You have time, you can reorganize time. You have people, they're organized in a particular way now, but I can organize them in a different way. And does this reshuffling of our resources, can we do it differently? So the problem is this big inequality, heterogeneity in each grade, and that's what makes it difficult to teach, because the children are well below where we want to teach. How do we turn this situation around? So what we have tried to do, so the red lines show you business as usual, teaching in the row. What if you went like this? You thought of all of these children not as rows but as columns. And you took these 3 grades where the age groups also overlap. And very often in India, we also have one teacher teaching 2 grades sometimes. So the mixing up of children is not such a problem. And I say I move my system from operating in rows as it has done business as usual to operating in columns. And then you can see that if I put some of these children together, and I'll talk about how long to do it, I roughly get same numbers of kids, but the teachers now are teaching a more homogeneous group. So we say it does not matter what level you're at right now, I will start from your level. Because if I start from your level, then I can see what does it take to take you to the level that you need to be. And so really teaching at the right level is this. I was talking in some conference and somebody put their hand up and said, do you mean that we are all teaching at the wrong level? I think all good teaching is teaching at the right level. The problem is that the teacher has to balance between the expectations of that curriculum and that grade, which were maybe made for children who come from more advantaged backgrounds, where the children can remain at that grade level and move in that way. But when you bring 90% of your kids into school, and maybe they start with many different starting points, I think it's important to stop and say that every child can learn. I need to change the way I operate to be able to bring you in. So this is what we call teaching at the right level. Many different versions, which I won't bore you with. It has been done in summer holidays. It has been done during school time. It has been done by teachers. It has been done by community volunteers. It all depends on where is the opportunity to really change things around so that we can lift our children and take them forward. Designed for children who are 8 and older. Because again, if you think about the stage, once children are at least 7 or 8, cognitively they can move faster. I would not say that you can do something very quick with young kids because they need to take their time. And therefore, I think that simply by focusing on the basics for children over 8, let's see what we can do. What happens in a classroom? We start with this assessment so that we know with every child what they can do and where they're struggling. And then we group them by level, as we said. In a big school, you don't have to go across grades. In a small school, you may go across grades. It depends on how we are doing this. After I make the children's groups, I allocate the available teachers to these groups. Then for each group, we do activities which are at the level of that group and also a little bit challenging to take them forward. Work in big groups, in small groups, and often as individuals as well. Every now and then do the simple assessment to see, because the composition of these groups changes quite quickly. In Pratham programs, in the programs that we run directly, we see that every 10 days children can make a jump. So before they've had time to say that you are in this group, they have moved to the next group and to the next group. So it's important to keep track, because once this train leaves the station, it can move quite quickly. And then, of course, do this loop so that in the first time, you may have done some things which can be changed in the second time round. Simple framework, we need a system, but we need it to be flexible. Because my class could be quite different from your class. Therefore, we have some common activities that you do, but you may do them at different levels. So we say that we use a flexible framework of activities, 4 things that we do every day, and I'll tell you a little bit of what they are. But as my children begin to move, I need to make them more challenging, because I think there is a balance between being comfortable and being challenged. Being too challenged means I don't make the progress, and being too comfortable sometimes also is not right for progress. And then you need to do quite a bit of practice and reinforcement. We work in 3 ways. Some things we can do with the whole class, like we are doing now. But then when I want to look at this group, we will do things with that group, which is specific to that group. And then the individual work can be done by the teacher with a few children every day, and then also things that they can take home that their parents or their siblings can do with that individual child. Work in interconnected ways, because we know from so much research that has been done that children learn in many ways. One of my colleagues who worked with a group of kids used to say, we throw balls in the air, and some the children hold and some fall down. But you need to work in a way that you understand that math and language, yes, there are different skills to be taught, but they all connect with each other. And then as the whole process moves, you take it from being you go from a very small story to a longer story. You go from small vocabulary words to big vocabulary words. You go from expecting children to visualize and draw what they're hearing in a story to actually being able to write. So you move along this continuum of going from easier to more difficult. These are some examples of the very simple things that we do. I know that the world is divided into different kinds of literacy instruction. I don't want to start that here. We'd be here till midnight about whether the phonics approach or the balanced approach is right. It turns out that the approach we use is a balanced approach between both, where you do some work on your phonological awareness, on your phonetic understanding, but a story is very, very important part of our literacy instruction, because all children can listen to a story and engage in the idea of the story and in the comprehension of the story. Similarly, in math, we put a big focus on talking. Very often, math, it tends to be numbers in a notebook or a blackboard, and not enough talking around math. So how do you talk about math so that I know how you're thinking, what you're thinking? How do I use concrete objects to move to more abstracts? And then, of course, I think in both language and math, a lot of games that can be played that really help to let the concepts go. Here are some pictures of what this looks like. You may see there's a lot of using of the floor. We use the floor a lot because that way it is very visible to your friends and to your counterparts. Teacher can see what you're doing. We use a lot of actual objects. And then, as you can see, small groups and big groups. So the spirit underlying this, I think, is important in a class. The teacher's job is to role model, is to demonstrate, is to show the way in the big group, so that in the small group, the children can follow what was the role modeling that was done. Language is very important, so that we have also many diverse language contexts. So do the oral work in the language that the children understand, and then maybe move to the more formal language, as the case may be. Combine activities, because you need to listen, you need to say, you need to do, you need to write, you need to read. All of these should be together. And then I think that these different ways of organizing children, not for a full class, because a full class has a lot of variation, but there are different ways in these groupings. And finally, we always say that, and I think that's not only true for teaching at the right level, it is true for any good class, that when you enter a school, if you hear a lot of noise, it means there is something happening there that all children are involved in. So encourage the expression. We are often told that your method is fine, but the kids, they move too much and they talk too much. And I think that's an important part of learning, is that you need to talk. It's very difficult. Maybe as an adult, you can learn silently. But when you're a kid, you want to show off, you want to talk, you want to tell people, you want to correct your friend. And so I think encouraging expression in words, in writing, is a key part that you are an individual. Your thoughts are important. Your ability to express builds your own confidence. We must have some data because you are all very research people. And so we have many states, but I just brought out one of the recent ones. This is a state called Punjab. It has about 15,000 schools. And they carried out last year teaching at the right level for about 3 months. And why 3 months? That's another story. But that was a 3 months in which they could fit in a program like this. You can see grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. You can see the green is increasing over time. Green, the dark green, is when the kids can have the ability to read that longer story. And you can see that for each of these grades, obviously 5th grade has done far better because they're older. In the same time, they can do more. 3rd grade has come from about 27% being able to read at 3rd grade level to about almost 60% being able to read, and another almost 17 to 20% not far behind. So even by the end of 3rd grade, we would say that close to almost 80% children are able to handle basic text. And they still have 4th and 5th grade to go. And this was done by doing 1 hour of reading, using teaching at the right level, not their curriculum, and 1 hour of math. And I think the big difference is that it didn't matter what their curriculum materials were. For this 1 hour, we worked on their basics. And that's how this progress was made. Now, very quickly, I have a little bit of time left. How does this actually roll out? Even today, a couple of people have asked me, how do you begin? How do you move? And I thought I'll take the example of one of our big states. So, Uttar Pradesh, which is, it's called UP in India. If UP was a country, it would be probably the 6th largest country in the world. So it's a big state. And if UP improves, India improves, and the world improves. So it's a very important state for us. So some years ago, the government there said, okay, we are going to do this. So our idea was, why don't you do it in few districts? They said, no, 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 no. And often governments will say this, if I'm going to do it for the whole thing. And we do it twice, 3 times, so that every round we improve. We don't wait for a few districts to go ahead first. So I said, fine, because you have to co-own the problem, and we have to co-create, and we have to collaborate. I'm so glad when Javier was putting down his list in the morning that we fit the bill, and we have done some of those things. So we said, but before you go to all teachers, we need to prepare, right? Before you go to play in the World Cup, you don't take your whole country's team and start playing. You have to do some preparatory steps. So we said, can you provide some leaders from each of your districts? Government asked us, who should be the leaders? We said, it's your leaders, whoever you think can lead a program. Because the lead is not just academic. The lead has to be people who can move the system. So whoever in your team you feel can be a leader, please bring them forward, because this is going to need a lot of energy, charisma, of course pedagogical technique, but I think the rest of it, of being able to inspire other people, is important. So they gave us 4 people from each district, and we spent 5 days with them. 5 days of being in sessions, but also 5 nights of chatting together, getting to know people, because the social and emotional part of even is not just kids, is of everyone is important. Do you believe this can happen? Can you be working as a team? Do you feel there are challenges? So these 5 days, we call it training, but I think it's in getting to know who your leadership team is and is going to be. Is it enough to be selected as a leader? No, you have to do it yourself, because it's not enough to read a recipe book and give it out. If you don't cook the dish and I don't taste it, I'm not sure that you know how to cook the dish. So we persuaded the system to say, 5 days we get them in person. In the next 3 weeks, they do 1 hour a day of reading and 1 hour a day daily in their classrooms. Because you have to have the, I don't know what the English word is, you have to have the ability to actually do it yourself before you can tell other people. And this sometimes is a struggle, because you say, these are leaders, they know everything, just train them, give them the manuals, give them the materials, and they'll go forward. And we say, just do this, because it helps. During those 21 days, we made sure that we visited everyone. Visiting everyone was not because, as Pratham, we think we know better than you, but visiting them meant that your work is important. If you, as a leader, are taking 21 days to do something, it is important that we should visit you and learn from you and see what you do. And in these 21 days, we also measured, the teachers measured, how much progress they made. Because every day is important. And what we saw is, at the end of this step 3, there was almost a 20 percentage point improvement of the number of the proportion of children who could read at the story level, which meant that almost every day there was a 1% movement. And that made this big team of leaders realize that every day is important. I don't know about your countries, we have many holidays in our countries, okay? For religious reasons, social reasons. We have elections. Democracy is a very good thing, but elections happen in the school, they take up the time of the teachers. And then you have census, you have surveys, and our teachers are often the people who have to do all of this. So we wanted the teachers to feel that every day is important. And every day not spent with the children is time lost. And then during that process, all the contextualization, maybe this language doesn't work, this grouping is not right for this context, all those changes could happen because it is these leaders who are going to own and lead the program. So it built in time for these adaptations that were required. And then, of course, depending on the size of the team, sometimes these leaders have to create the next stage of leaders before you go to the teachers. So the fundamental point here was that nobody trains anybody until they've done it themselves. Once you've done it yourself and you've seen the change, then you are actually a missionary. You're not just a master trainer. You have converted your own mind from thinking this is a challenging job to saying this is possible because I did it. If I did it, you can do it. And then the people who train must also be the people who provide the monitoring and the mentoring support. Because then we are working as a team. I may be a leader of practice, but you are my teachers. And this is what happened during this big exercise. This happened just before COVID, and I want to show you what the results were. So grade 3 and grade 4, again, we were able to get only about 60 days, 70 days. But you could see that this is the kind of change that happened. Almost between 50 and 20 percentage points in a large system of, as you saw, 120,000 schools. And the important thing is, what does this compare to? This looks good. 60 days, you got 20 percentage points. Your leaders got 20 percentage points in 20 days. So your leaders' level of improvement is sometimes correlated with what can be done in a bigger scale. But we had our ASA results for many years. And when we compared the ASA results to the results here, we saw that from the big data, you could see that year on year, sometimes you took 15 percentage points to be achieved in a whole year. And this program, in a short period of time, could achieve that. So if you were able to repeat this 3 times that year, you would probably get quite a big gain as we go forward. So I'm coming back to where we are. Our policy on the foundational side says you must achieve it by grade 3. And in India right now, we are seeing a big government effort to operationalize these early years. And Javier, if you want me to talk about that, you invite me next year, because that's a whole other story. I'm not going to give all my stories away, because then I don't get invited back to this part of the world. But what I'm saying is that the policy also says that we have to achieve foundational learning till the end of primary. And there I think that there could be other ways, but using this teaching at the right level, using it as a catch-up, shows tremendous promise. And we think that we can achieve this in India. And if we can achieve it with all our issues, I think you will be able to achieve it much faster. So, where does this leave us? I looked this up today because very often we are such a big country, we don't look at global goals. But the global goal says the same thing, right? It says that we want foundational learning, grade 2 or grade 3. We want kids at the end of primary grades to be able to achieve foundational learning. And of course, by the end of lower secondary for sure. And this, they are saying, is a minimum proficiency. And I know there's a lot of debate about what is minimum proficiency. But if we say you should be able to read basic things and understand them, you can do basic arithmetic operations. So as we look at this, is this a challenge or is it a possibility? I think we look at each of our countries. Do we have a policy that says this as clearly? Or is it just a global goal? Sometimes a global goal seems like far away. I am very proud that my country has a very clearly stated policy. And we can unite under that policy to say that this is a national priority that needs to get done. How do I see the policy being prioritized in practice? Is the system willing to give time to do things differently? Does the system have resources? And even if you can't bring in extra resources, are the resources being deployed in a different way that has a chance of reaching these results? Is there sufficient operational momentum? In all our education systems, many things need to be done simultaneously. And sometimes in trying to fix everything, we don't get too much done on some of the basic things. And then finally, I think it's important to reflect, and I showed you our data, that business as usual is not going to take me to the result I need. So there has to be something that is done differently. And do I see enough promise of that different thing that is going to lead to this kind of a acceleration? Very bluntly put, I think that like the education policy in India says, that if we do not achieve this, I don't like this 4.1.1a, it just seems like a laundry list of something. If we don't achieve children reading stories by the time they're 8 or 10, if we don't achieve doing simple arithmetic, being able to actually tell you that if you have had, 3 loaves of bread, that is more than, if you've had 1 loaf of bread or whatever the good math story should be. If we don't do this and don't do this in the next 5 years, I think the chances for any serious equity or social justice will be non-existent. We are at a time in all our education systems where we've figured out how to get kids to school. We may still have pockets of children, like the ones we saw with the migrant children. We may have children who are in especially difficult situations where bringing them to school is still hard. But I think as countries, we have figured out how to bring most children to school. And I feel that that has happened because the whole society understood that schooling for all is important. Whether it is parents or grandparents or shopkeepers or neighborhoods or communities and governments, we all work together to go for that goal. And today, I think, is a time to say that this learning for all is not only the responsibility of few people. And I think, as you saw in the video in the beginning, it really needs a whole societal push to make sure that every child has the opportunity to be able to get to at least the foundational level, and that there is some very strong urgency behind it. I have saved 5 minutes, by the way. You can't see the clicker, but I have, okay? And I think that is it from me. So I've earned my supper and you have earned your supper too. Okay. I think you wanted some questions or not or whatever, but I'm here and I'm awake. Yes.
Thank you very much for that presentation. It was really wonderful. 2 questions. When you talk about the large groups, what is the largest number you've had in a large group? And number 2, could you outline maybe 2 or 3 challenges you've had with this program? Thank you.
So in India, we have different states have different population density. So we may have a large group, 60, 70 kids in India that you see. But I've seen teaching at the right level in some African countries where they have 100 or 200 children in one grade. And therefore, the groups there, when they make it, especially the groups which are low performing, can be quite large. But you only have limited number of teachers. So how to handle that group while minimizing the heterogeneity as much as possible is, I think, the way to go. There are many challenges. One of the challenges that we see is that when we work in early grades, it's a lot easier because you know that you're building the foundation and you can add to whatever is there in the curriculum. The biggest challenge here is I have to put aside the grade curriculum for some time. And there is a lot of resistance often from the system, from teachers to say, I understand the importance of this, but what happens to the syllabus? What happens to the curriculum? I also see a challenge of patience sometimes. Because you feel I've done it in one round, and that's it, I did it. I did the remedial. But even in my first round, I may still make progress, but have another round or 2 rounds to go. So how do you stick with it? I feel if this is done systematically for a couple of years, then we should be able to reduce the number of kids who are getting left behind to maybe like a 5 or 10%, which may be issues that are more complicated than just teaching at the right level. Third challenge is there may be already other programs that are running. So you can have 2 or 3 reading programs and the teachers are confused about which one is the one that I should follow. Because sometimes senior people change and a new program or a new donor brings in a new program. So how do you prioritize that this is what is important and put the system's alignment behind that? I don't blame you if you have no questions, because we are all around for the next 2 days. We can talk about them later as well. Oh, my favorite question maker.
One final question. So you talked about straying away from the curriculum at times. Do you develop the material that you use, or are they part of the typical school system?
So this period that I called of practice classes, so we start with some simple material. The simple material is exactly this. There is little paragraphs and slightly longer stories. Sometimes in my grade level textbook, they are much longer. And I don't want to give a 5th grade child a 1st grade textbook, because that hurts the dignity of the child. So the real material here is just stories that kids can read. Stories are best when they come locally, with words and vocabulary and context that are for themselves. And we see very often in the period that we are building these leaders of practice, that you're also building the material that is going to be used, so that it comes directly from the place and from the people who will implement it. Yes?
Thank you very much. Well, not so much a question as much as it is a comment. I kind of like the idea of the teaching by the levels rather than say the grade when you identify a problem. I think that is something that is simple but very practical, and that can work. So I just thought that I had to share that.
Thank you.
For that.
Yeah. I have my thing, so I can take questions in Spanish also.
Thank you for sharing. I would like to know if there's a risk that the child might remain in the same level for a long time and there's frustration in the child. Is there a way to determine whether there's a learning issue or a greater issue that you can help them with?
So yes, when a child is attending, when a child is attending and you see they are not moving, okay, different children can move at different time, but they have not moved from their original level, that also sets off a signal that I need to understand what is going on with this child. Sometimes when we see these situations, we ask about the story of the child. And very often you hear things from their teachers like, this child was born too early, or this child was very sick when they were young, or they have had something not good happen in the family. So you know that these are not just pedagogical issues, there are something else. Now very often our systems, at least in India, we don't know what to do when there is a disability of that kind. When it is a little bit more of a social problem, more love and care from the teacher sometimes helps. To say that I trust you, I think you can move. We have a lot of time, don't worry. But we feel that to be able to understand more cognitive or behavioral issues that are beyond perhaps just a normal pedagogical treatment, this is a good place to kind of find that out and be prepared in maybe in some ways to be able to deal with it. So yes, there will be children who will have, but then you can find out the story of each child, and sometimes we are able to help them, and sometimes you just give more attention and care. And we say this, I think, there are studies as well of the grandma effect. And now that I am a grandmother, I like that theory a lot, okay? That when you pat the child on the back, the child sometimes does better. I mean, figuratively. I think the hole in the wall, you know, the experiment of hole in the wall, which is you put a screen, a computer monitor, and the children do stuff on their own. They've seen that when there is, they call it grandmas, I don't know if they really were grandmas, who encourage the children, it goes further. So I do think there is something about understanding motivation, trust. I think the video of the migrant children showed that if there was something in the school that helped the child get over their fear, their lack of trust, that you can move ahead. Yeah. We are now at 0-0. Yes? Okay. Well, thank you so much. Oh. Yeah, sure. I had a big snack before this event.
I'm so sorry to stop you from
No,
dinner.
we can put the lights on that we can see each other better.
I have two questions. What support structures do you have to facilitate this program that you're doing in terms of staffing, in terms of teacher training, in terms of monitoring every single child and their specific needs and making sure that you have it right? What structures do you have in place to ensure that this is done and done correctly?
So I would say that we work with whatever our government structures are. So we have, for example, in India, a budget for teacher training for every teacher for the year. So something like 10 days of teacher training are already provided for in the district or the state budgets. So we will try to influence to use that time for a program like this, and then that time gets committed if people higher up in the system feel that this is high priority to do. Once we create this, we will use people from within the system. So our system has teachers, and then we have something called cluster coordinators, who have about 20 schools, 30 schools under them. And then we have their next level up, who have about 100 schools under them. So we will use these people who, for the period of the last, I would say, 20 years, have been part of increase of number of schools, providing of inputs, monitoring the inputs. But now we feel that our systems have the inputs in place. So how do I change the role of the school inspector to not inspect the school, but to support the learning of the child and to provide the leadership to the teachers. Hence, for us, this conversion of these people into leaders of practice, leaders of learning, as opposed to being leaders of school inspection, has been an important one. And then the attention to each child, I would say, really comes from this very simple assessment method, which says, before I teach my class, I must know every child. But the method is 5 minutes. Children really like it because they get singled out to sit with the teacher. And the teacher, I think, picks up, ideally, more than just the data. She picks up where they are nervous, where they are, lots of things. So I'm giving you an ideal picture. Obviously, there's variation in all of these. But I think the important thing is that you need to have champions. You need to have champions that believe that this change can happen and it can happen today and in my system. So we work very hard with the leaders to make sure that anybody who's going to lead this is a true believer. Because you can't do this just with tools and with manuals and, you need I always say that you need the head to know what you're doing. You need the hands to be, quick. But if you don't have the heart, you will leave children behind, So how do you get the hand and the heart and the head to move together? And the hand and the head sometimes can go. But the heart, you have to feel that I cannot stop here. I have to figure out a way for this. And that, I think, there is no silver bullet for it. It's just, I think. But as a team, when you hear other people, and I've seen this happen, after, the baselines are done and the midlines are done, when you sit for a review meeting, very often people will stop talking in big numbers. They'll stop saying, children are poor and therefore they are not doing. They'll say, this child had this problem and this is what we tried to do. And as soon as there's actually specific children being named, specific schools being identified, you know that we've moved towards saying that I am paying close attention to the people who need me the most. So.
Very much. Clearly there has been a cultural shift.
Yes.
In how not only teachers and students, but educators, leaders approach this new system and way of doing things. Yeah. So thank you very much. You answered my second question in your response to the first.
Okay. I think parents are a very important part of this.
Very, very important.
Very important part because the younger parents have had more schooling. And what happens is that they have higher aspirations. And therefore, sometimes I feel that we must take them along to say that if this is going to make a difference, you need to work along with me, or simple things that we are doing in school that you can do at home with your kids. So
excellent. Very good job. Thank you very much.
I give you a big thanks for all your effort and support. You and Pratham Foundation, right?
It's incredible what this program does and the causes it makes. And I'm not talking only about the achievements on the understanding of reading, but in the social and emotional part, the impact this has on the children, for older children that felt that couldn't read well and now comes with another one and share the involvement of community. We've had experiences of members of the community that were leaders of the program, not the teacher, the director, but members of the community that were leaders. And the results, in 3 months, we were able to increase or improve the reading understanding in 38% in 3 months. Unfortunately, we were affected by financing that but we are looking at this time how we start again. Definitely is a program that has an immediate impact in learning of children, above all, community and the socio-emotional. To feel incredible how one kid, when they get to understand a text, their life changed. It's like the one that cannot hear and get a hearing aid device. It's the same phenomenon. I wanted to have the opportunity to personally thank you for the effort, the work, and to give testimony on how effective this can be.
I wish we could tape him and use this as an advertisement. But he's absolutely right. I think it's not only about reading. If you look at videos, when the children cannot read, they don't meet your eye. And I'm talking about slightly older children. And the reason to do it with slightly older children is also tactical, because you can get the gains that he's talking about. When you work with 5-year-olds, they have time. 6-year-olds, they have time. There's no need for magic and do quickly. But when you work with 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, they already know that they're not able to do something. So they don't meet your eye. Their voice is soft. There's a lot of all this. And then when they learn to read, the back becomes straight. It is a physiological thing almost. The eyes look at you. And this feeling that if we are leaving 70% kids who don't believe in themselves, that is a huge human loss. And so at an early age, you should feel I can do anything. It's only when you become 65, you feel, oh my God, how shall I go to Guatemala? It's so far away, you know. But when you are 10, you should feel I will swim there. It's okay, you know. So I want to leave you with two thoughts, two actually incidents. One is, how do you know? We do impact evaluation and RCT and MIS and all this, which we need to do. Because behind every number, there is a story. But I sometimes feel that incidents like, I'll tell you, give me the faith that this is all real. So I went to a school where they were doing this, and some of the kids who had moved to the higher levels, 2 or 3 kids said to me, we like the stories that are coming, but can we show you the stories we wrote? Because we feel they are better. So that, once children learn to read, they are like a demon. They need to be fed. And so think in India, we have 250 million children. If they all learn to read, we need 350 million stories every day. So how does the teacher, the children start writing so that we don't have to worry about how it sustains? It just comes that I have the desire to write a story because I think my story could be better. The second one was from a school in one of these states. And I think I was visiting towards the end of the program. And so I'm an unknown person. I go to the school, and there were lots of kids. It was break time. So I said, do you guys like language or you like math? So there's a big argument. And then the kid said, math. So I said, shall I ask you easy question or hard? And without a minute stopping, all the kids said, give us hard problems. Now this is also a confidence. It's not like they could solve everything I said. But the challenge was, try me. I can. Okay, you may be a stranger visiting my school, but give me, they called it vadda problem. You know, big, hard problems. Give them to me, and I will try to solve them. So I think this is what you want to create, is the kids will drive themselves after a while. But to get there, you need all the adults to say, you can do it. And I'm with you, and I'm going to help you. So now we need to eat.
ठीक है इसको नहीं हाँ ये नहीं
Around the globe, the belief was that if you open a school, children will learn. But children are not learning. For example, in India, 97% children are enrolled in schools, but approximately 50% children go to 5th grade and cannot read a 2nd grade paragraph. The question to be asked is why? All human knowledge is stored in words and numbers. If you don't have foundational skills, all doors to acquiring wider knowledge are closed. And that's, I think, a global problem. In the Pratham program, it takes 50 days for a child to learn to read. If that is possible, how long will it take for 100 million children to read? Is the answer 50 times 100 million, or are we talking about 50 days? I've been working in this sector for the last 25 years. Everybody's trying to find answers to the same problem. How can we get all children to learn? I think it's easy to see in Indian schools. There are those who have access to preschool education, parents are educated. They form what I would call the front of the class. And the remainder who don't have preschool education, they form the back of the classroom. And the teacher actually more engaged with the front of the classroom. And the back of the classroom gets more and more neglected. I think that needs to be shaken up and said, do something about it. Pratham's solution for this problem is called teaching at the right level.
हाथ ऊपर करो, जोर से हिलाओ, जितनी जोर से हो सके।
पहले हम लोगों से अपना व्यवहार, उसके लिए कुछ गतिविधियां करना ज़रूरी होता है। उनके साथ कुछ बातचीत पर्सनल करना, उनका जान पहचान बनाना, तो बच्चे और रिलैक्स हो जाते हैं उससे।
हम दोनों लोग मिलकर पढ़ेंगे, नहीं? जी।
The place to start is always assessment. We show a piece of paper with some words, some alphabets, and some long paragraphs. Depending upon which one children can read, that is the level of the child. Instead of teaching children at every age grade, we actually try to group children according to levels.
अगर मुझे एक एक बच्चे के स्तर पता चल जाएंगे तो उसी के अनुसार मैं उनको डोज दे सकूंगी या फिर उनको गतिविधियां करा सकूंगी। कुछ भी बताते हैं तो वो जल्दी से सीखते हैं।
The activities are divided into 3 parts. The class begins with everybody participating in a story listening activity because that doesn't require reading, it only requires listening and learning the words. And then they break up into small groups. The alphabet readers are engaging with all kinds of phonemic charts and so on, and they can read words before they know. So if you know words, you are given paragraphs. So before they know it, they've become paragraph readers. And the third activity is then the children individually do some writing. So every child actually starts progressing. In the Pratham program, it takes 50 days for a child to learn to read. Children feel good about themselves. It's not only about reading, writing, arithmetic. Believing in yourself is the most important strength that you can acquire. And it's great fun.
Pratham has worked together with JPL affiliated professors for over 15 years to evaluate and adapt the approach to work at scale. We're a global research center. JPL conducts randomized evaluations on social programs. One of the most impressive studies was conducted in Uttar Pradesh. Students who attended the learning camp at the end of the program, double the number of those kids could read a simple paragraph than those children who didn't attend the program. What we're trying to do at JPL is best support governments and a number of organizations who are trying to adopt teaching at the right level to help them do that as best as they can.
All the government primary schools have been covered under this program. There has been a significant improvement within a very short period of time. I believe that teaching at right level is a must. It has no substitute.
Last year, we reached 8 million children. We must make sure that all children will learn to read. And then once you do that in a country the size of India, why can't it be done globally?
The Teaching at the Right Level program in Zambia is being implemented in 1,100 schools. And next year, the program will go to 1,800 schools. When you see kids learning, you see kids light up and feel empowered. Teaching at the right level is one way of empowering these children that I think could be really meaningful throughout their lives.
Kids are not resistant to learning. It's just the way you package it. I think we are giving back children their childhood. That's the teaching at the right level. It's about my self-esteem, that I'm somebody, and then I'm going to grow.
Hey, thanks for watching our video. We hope you enjoyed it. For more
Thank you, Rukmini, for sharing your beautiful experience with us. Very inspiring. Next year, we'll wait for you again. And I will keep the phrase Rukmini saying we are on time to change the reality and to change and revert the 70% of children that do not trust themselves because they cannot read. That's what we're here for, to transform their realities. So let's give Rukmini a hand. And enjoy the evening. Tomorrow we'll be here at 8:30.